Hi, Jessica again. For installment 2 of Letters of Rec, we've got where to start or formatting the letter, and then what to include, what not to include. So just starting with formatting the letter, this is a traditional business letter, and so it should have a few components, starting with the DSST buyer's letterhead, which you can find on a document in the Letters of Rec resources folder. It should also have the buyer's address and then the date. Now, I like to put this little tagline here that you can see, letter of recommendation for a particular student, in this case, Alicia Finella. That is helpful for me when I have so many different documents open, and then I for sure will not edit the incorrect one with another student's information. Another pro tip, the address could also be a footer, and that would save you about 3 lines. If you tend to write a lot and you have a lot to say and you need those 3 lines, use that address as a footer. You also, as a reminder, are not writing this letter to a particular college, so you should not include a college address or a college name anywhere. So as much as you might want to say, like, dear the admissions counselors from my alma mater, that is lovely. And if you upload this letter and that student is not applying early decision or is applying even early decision, but then that letter gets sent to other schools, it is very difficult for an admissions counselor to read the name of another school and still take that content to heart. And so please keep that in mind. I love Dear Madam or Sir in particular, or Dear Admissions. And then as a closing, whatever you are excited about there, I'm a best regards person. But what you should also include in your closing is your contact information. And so go with your name, your title, DSST Buyers High School, phone number, and email address. You can put the phone number of our school. You don't have to put your cell phone number. It is totally up to you. They have your email address if they need a way to contact you, as long as school is closed. Half-inch margins as a typical business letter. And then for font, you want to range between 10 and 12 point. You don't want to go lower than 10 or higher than 12. And then a classic style font. So ain't nobody like to read Comic Sans. It's weird. Please choose something that is classic. So again, just kind of walking you through what it takes to write an exemplar letter of recommendation. I do suggest that you go into the folder and read some examples yourself, or feel free to reach out to your colleagues to get some good examples there too. So I think it's important to just realize the distinction between a teacher letter and a counselor letter. And so as counselors, myself, Sarah, and Mati are responsible for writing about the student in our school. So I like to think about it as us talking about students as citizens of our school. And so how do they contribute to the community? How do they contribute to the broader community of Denver? What their passions are, what major they're interested in, and how all of the components of their application, so their transcript, their resume activities, including things like internships, summer programs, clubs, sports teams, etc., and success in academics, how that all points to that student being successful in college and then also successful in the major of choice. And so we're going to take care of all of that. The teacher should be focusing on a student as a citizen in the classroom. And so providing specific academic examples, intellectual attributes, and definitely highlight any academic honors or awards. I would say typically students forget that they received a content award, and so it might not exist anywhere else on the application. Even if it does, it is okay to highlight that one more time. That is a huge thing. Please, please talk about it. So just some ideas of what to include and the format that you should use. In the first section, or you can think about it as the first paragraph, this is where you're going to establish the relationship that you have with the student. So talk about how you know that student, and that is definitely as that student's classroom teacher, but it also might be through other methods as well. Maybe you lead a club that they're involved in. Maybe you're also that student's advisor, etc. So fine to say all of that in the opening. In the second section, this is where you're discussing specific work in the classroom. And so here are some ways that you can talk about that work. Compare how the student relates to his or her peers. This is definitely helpful if it is a statistic. If you are unsure of that, that's okay too. And so you could say that if you don't know that that student definitely received the highest score on the Try-2 final exam in 10th grade world history, that is okay. You could say that that student scored in the top 5% of your class or something of that nature. Using some quantitative data here is going to be really helpful for admissions officers. And so, again, I think beyond what that admissions officer knows already from the transcript, we don't just want you to reiterate that that student received a B in the class. It's more about that student's journey to that B. What did that look like? Was that an F at the beginning of the year and that student pulled out a B through tremendous hard work, etc.? If you can highlight the student's work in particular, and so hopefully that might be fresh in your mind even right now from this year if you're an 11th grade teacher, but think back to a paper that they wrote, something specific that you could point to. And then discuss that student's contributions as part of your class. So in the latter half of the letter, you're going to be focusing on the student's characteristics. And so this is a little bit more qualitative. And, you know, honestly, like section 2 could be the bulk of your letter, and section 3 and 4 could be just the last paragraph, and it might be 3 or 4 sentences. That is totally fine. In section 3, you are going to be using some of those great adjectives that you can pull directly from the Letters Rec Resources file, but you're going to be specific. And so, like this example, you want to say that the student is kind and a patient mentor to the other students, but you have to back that up with a specific example. And so you can talk about how that student supported younger students in accelerating through a math course or something of that nature, but it has to be specific. For section 4, this is literally where you are summarizing why this college should admit this student. And so you're going to say 1 or 2 lines of, bam, this is what the student is. Please contact me if you have any questions. I stand behind this recommendation. And you close it. Just some things to avoid. Gender bias or any other identity factor bias is really easy to do sometimes. And so even like simple characteristics like talking about how a student brightens the room with her smile, that's something that's typically attributed to a young woman. And so just don't do it. Again, we've talked about this, but do not just reiterate what's on the transcript or resume, go beyond it. Please don't overshare. So just rule of thumb, don't include anything that could be something that the student possibly wouldn't divulge. And it's really not your place to divulge it, and so leave it up to the student. And then don't feel like you have to go over more than 1 page. 1 page is plenty. So thanks so much. Please check out the last video to find out how to upload your letters into Overgrad.